without further ado, I'm going to just give you a quick overview of Professor Jean Greyling. He is the head of Department of Computing Sciences at the Nelson Mandela University, with a very special interest in teaching introductory programming. Since 2017, he has been coordinating the Tangible Africa project, aimed at introducing learners to coding without the use of computers. The project has reached over 50,000 learners in direct workshops, receiving various national and international accolades. So we really do look forward to hearing what you have to share with us this afternoon, Jean. And on behalf of the IITPSA, the university, and everybody else, thank you so much for the great work that you're doing and for really reaching out to the schools, and I know in many rural areas as well, and for really making a difference and getting young learners excited about IT and about coding. So without further ado, I'm going to stop sharing, Jean, and I'm going to hand over to you.
Yes, thanks, Lynn. I trust you guys can hear me. I'm just going to start sharing quickly. Okay, Lynn, just so that I don't stress, can you see me and can you hear me?
Yes, we can see you and hear you.
Okay,
John?
thanks. Okay, thank you very much for this opportunity, and I apologize to some of the teachers that might have seen bigger part of this presentation, but I hope I'm still talking to some new people. We call the talk Unplugged Coding, but a few purists has been on my case. So not everything that we do is unplugged, although a lot of the activities are. So when we talk about our apps, we call it tangible coding. So as soon as you bring a device in, the purist tells me that I need to call it tangible coding. So just to be puristically correct there. The context has not changed since I've started doing this presentation in 2017, which is in itself a worry. We all know that the government's talking about coding and robotics in primary schools, and people are working very hard behind the scenes on the new curricula. But we also know that 16,000 schools in South Africa do not have computers. The very sad fact is that the mass pool from which we can draw into the STEM qualifications, I believe, is literally becoming smaller every year. So you might have pass rates increasing, but the number of students passing maths with a good mark are getting less. I've just come from a computer conference where universities are reporting huge increases in numbers of first-year enrollments in computer qualifications, but they're not seeing that pulling through to the number of graduates they produce 3-4 years later. So the bottom line is, although there's a huge increase in first-year numbers, the graduates are still not addressing the desperate shortage of computer skills, programming skills in South Africa, across Africa, as well as in Europe, North America. The challenges in Africa, I think we're all aware of them. The one that I want to highlight here, which I only found out a few months ago, is they call it teacher intimidation. You might be teaching a teacher everything you want about coding, etc. But as soon as you put a teacher that hasn't really worked on a laptop or computer before, they feel intimidated, and a lot of the knowledge just kind of evaporates. And I think the other challenge we have is, and that's a real challenge, the vast majority of teachers in South Africa have not been trained in coding, official conventional coding like Java or Python or C#. So the question is, how do we get schools to start doing coding and robotics with these realities? The Tanks mobile app was developed by Byron Batterson as an honors project at Mandela University in 2017. And it was all his vision, and I always accredit him for this. He walked into my office in January 2017. He had this plan. He developed the app, and he's still part of the project. And I still say it's probably one of the best honors projects I've seen in 30 years of teaching. So the objectives of this project was and is still, we shouldn't need computers, only cell phones. We shouldn't need electricity nor internet. We should be able to empower teachers within 4 hours to go out and start doing stuff at their school. It should be fun, and it's very important for me. If it's not fun, especially if you're trying to teach coding to primary school kids, you're killing the subject and the discipline. It should be low budget intervention. And for South African schools, low budget means really low budget. You can't start talking about a robot that's going to cost 40,000 Rand and 5 kids can play with it at the same time. That's not low budget. But we should not compromise on the quality, on the important content. So the pedagogical principles that we involved was play and learn, scaffolding, physical interaction, problem solving, and group work. Very basic for those who've never seen the game. The learners get a challenge on the screen where they need to move the tank to a destination. They have tangible tokens like puzzle pieces that they pack out on their desk, and that becomes the program. That becomes the commands to the computer or to the tank. And then you take a photo of that on your phone, your mobile device. Through the QR codes, it internalizes the commands, and then it executes on the screen. We make a lot use of coding facilitators all over the country. Young people, some graduates, some unemployed, who we train and who then work as interns or facilitators, go into schools and start introducing learners and teachers to the game. Since developing the Tanks app, we realized that it has 2 limitations. It doesn't really address the needs of your foundation phase kids, grade R to 3. And for them, we developed the Boats coding kits. Unfortunately, I don't have time today to go into the detail, but Boats is very much 10 very interactive activities. We've done this, rolled this out across the country in schools that I know have direct contact with great success. And then we reskinned Tanks to Rangers, and that's the app we're focusing on now. It uses the same tokens, and the kit includes 8 sets, so it allows you to teach to 40 kids, lesson plans, and a few other resources. We put a lot of emphasis on computational thinking, problem solving, and we say to any teacher, don't think about teaching coding if the majority of your content is not problem solving. Coding for us is merely a tool, and we really like to emphasize this. That's computational thinking, design thinking, digital citizenship. All of this, we've developed resources that can be taught offline without any computers, and we often do online training for teachers. This is one of my favorite photos of the past 6 years. Keith Gibson from Collegiate developed us 40 computational thinking activities. And these are learners in Mpumalanga. I think it was I can't remember the town now. They were waiting for their taxi, and the teacher gave them these activities from Keith's compilation. And this is them solving a problem on the pavement while waiting for their taxis. And this is the kind of thing we need to see in South Africa. We also encourage schools to start coding clubs since it's not yet in the curriculum. We really say to schools, please start voluntary coding clubs after school in the afternoons, like a chess club or a choir or a rugby club, whatever. The photo on the right is from Excelsior Primary School in Gqeberha, where the teacher started her coding club now 2 years ago. Last time I spoke to her, she still had 60 to 70 learners coming twice a week. And you'll see it's not coding, it's problem-solving activities. And most of her activities she got from Pinterest. So there's a lot you can do in coding or a problem-solving club. The one on the left is from Tsomo in the rural Eastern Cape. I know Bronwyn is talking later today. Bronwyn is running a very successful coding club at Summerwood in Summerstrand. Then our tournaments is turning out to be our flagship events. This tournament is taken from a league competition which Summerwood and some other schools in Gqeberha have started. They challenge each other once a term on coding. And for me, this proves that coding can be a spectator sport. The teacher training. And I want to just focus on this. We started with serious teacher training in 2021. Up till last week, I said we've trained 20,000 teachers. I was with SATU last week, and they said they've trained another 5,000. So we've now trained with us and master trainers that we've trained 25,000 teachers across South Africa on Unplugged and Tangible Coding. Our biggest partners have been Suid-Afrikaanse Onderwysers SATU, as well as NATU. Maybe as the administrator could just mute everyone. Okay, thanks. So, and we're working again with them this year. So that 25,000 should be over 30,000 by the end of September. So the content that's in this teacher training, the first one is the whole concept of demystifying coding, just kind of making teachers and learners know that coding is a list of instructions that tells a computer what to do. So we have a lot of interactive activities, mainly in the boats kit, but just as relevant to high school kids. If you start, you start at the start. We've just done it with a group of NGO workers here in Dublin this morning, and it's huge fun. Just kind of demystifying the concept of what coding is. And we say, if you want to do that at school, that's where you start. Very big emphasis on computational thinking. I don't want to confuse you now, but the concepts of decomposition, breaking a problem up into smaller parts, abstraction, deciding what's important and what's not, pattern matching, have I solved this problem before? Do I need to reinvent the wheel? Can't I just repeat the previous solution? And then algorithm, writing down a list of instructions. And I always emphasize that these 4 steps are life skills. You might not ever think coding, but if you can apply these 4 steps, you're going to make your own life much better, and you might even fight less with your spouse, just tongue in cheek. If you guys can agree how abstraction works, you might not fight. The grid mat, very important tool for us, taking coding slightly more physical, where you move stuff on a grid mat using the old Lego commands, forward, backward, left, right, repeat, and learners really enjoy this. We've started something called boat chess, where they play on the grid mat, where teams compete, and that's when coding becomes a physical sport, because people, even teachers, take this up very seriously. And then for those of you who know coding, but these are the coding concepts that are introduced by playing the games: linear coding, loops, repeat and while, if statement, nested constructs. You can teach them about optimization, managing to make solutions more efficient, etc. So I always say to people, with level 34 of tanks took me 90 minutes to solve after lecturing for 30 years. So these challenges become real complex by the end. This is just kind of a word cloud from training we did last year with SATU. Now, excited is on both sides, but the top left is where people were in the morning at 9 o'clock, overwhelmed, unsure, anxious, curious, nervous, unknown, unskilled. Bottom right is where they were at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, excited, empowered, equipped, curious, doable, very important for us, doable. People leave the training after 4 hours feeling that I can go and do stuff in schools. We've got new content that we'll be launching this semester through the SA Onderwysers Unie as well as NATU. Kelly Bush from Hudson Park has developed materials showing how we can use our ranges of tanks, kits and games to teach very important maths concepts for grades 4 to 7. We think this has huge potential, and people that have been using tanks and ranges in their maths classes are giving us anecdotal evidence that it really helps them to enforce important maths concepts. And then our real flagship project, which we are very proud of, is tanks for the blind, as well as the visually impaired. On the left-hand side, you'll see our tokens with Braille. The levels are even 3D printed. On the right-hand side, we've got a much bigger tokens and a contrast app. And we'll be teaching 600 teachers from 22 schools for the blind starting mid-August in partnership with SATU. So by end of October, by the end of September, all teachers who work in visually impaired schools should be able to use our games to introduce coding to blind and visually impaired. At our Mandela Day tournament last week, we actually had 3 blind kids participating. The roadmap is very important for us. I've spoken about getting them to play, training the teachers, and then we put an emphasis, and we're really talking to teachers seriously now to identify learners in their classroom that has computational talent so that we can nurture them. We either get scholarships to put them in good schools, or we organize what we call academies on Saturdays where we improve their English and maths. Our purpose is not to produce software developers in grade 7. Our purpose is to make them aware, to identify their talent, and then to make sure they get a good matric. So we are not into the game of teaching them how to code. And then Buhle Pikole is our first real product that we know of that played tanks in Mandela Day 2018 and is now a software developer at S4. 2023, just some of the highlights. Mamas for Coding in the Western Cape, we had 100 ladies trained and they reached 10,000 learners using our project. Mandela Day last week, we're getting in the numbers, but it looks like way over 10,000 learners participated in 70 sites. And this will culminate in a Coding World Cup on 5 December with various other countries participating. Big data, we're very excited about. It's a program we developed for business schools where we introduce MBA students to big data using our coding apps. The activity you see on the photo here is an activity developed for grade R's, used just as efficiently with business schools. We're reaching out to foreign countries. We had Mandela Day in 5 other countries across Africa this year. I'm literally sitting in Dublin now where Jackson Chabalala is busy training master trainers from Ireland, Wales, Germany, Ireland, Wales, and Germany, and England. We'll be starting the movement here in Europe. Great excitement I saw this morning. Very important for us, if teachers are interested, we are working on a system where the teachers that participate in our project can earn badges. It's going to start with a blue badge, then bronze, then silver, and then gold. So I'll give an email address if teachers are interested. Those who have already started, you can automatically kind of qualify for one of these badges. We just want to acknowledge teachers that are part of the project, and we are aware of teachers and graduate students, education students that literally were employed because they could say that I can teach tangible coding in a school without computers. And the headmasters came back to them and said, we want you for this reason. So if we can encourage teachers to earn these badges, that would make them more employable in a country where vast majority of our teachers can't teach coding. Then the 21st century skills, it's not about coding. Coding is right at the bottom. All of what we do is about analytical thinking, active learning, problem solving, critical thinking, creativity, leadership, reasoning. I don't even have communication yet, to learn, to listen, to talk. And for us, that is the emphasis when you talk coding in schools. If you want to teach coding at a primary school and you want them to develop a program, you have a very limited view of what you need to do. These are the skills that you can enhance by using coding. Thank you. There's all the contact details. I always say, if you really want to find us, just type in Tangible Africa on Google and you will find us. Thanks. I kind of gave myself 5 minutes. If people have some observations or questions, they're more than welcome.
Great. Thanks so much, John. And yeah, just so impressive. And yes, I did forget to mention that you're actually presenting from Dublin. So thank you so much for making yourself available. I did see there is a question in the chat from Daniela. She says, are we able to purchase boats and ranges for school use?
Yes, definitely. If they can just contact info@libafoundation.org, I'll put them in contact with the office that deals with orders. Now, we sell the whole time. Just for people to know, the kit, and technically a school only needs one kit, one boat's kit and one ranger's kit, is 3,500 Rand each. That's all you need to buy. And it can obviously then rotate between classes. So the boats is 3,500 and the rangers is 3,500.
And you can use that right through all the grades, I would presume.
Yes, yeah, if you want to be fancy, you can buy more than one, but you can literally cope just with one kit.
Great. I see Odette, she's got her hand raised. Odette, if you want to just unmute yourself.
Good evening, how are you?
Hello, fine, thanks. Did you have a
Data,
question?
you want to
good,
ask your
thank
question?
you. I just want to ask about, yes, can you hear me?
On and off, but you can go ahead. Maybe
Okay,
type
so
it in,
I
in the
wanted to
message.
ask about the, okay, thank you.
Yeah,
We can hear you, Data.
Okay. I will type the question. I don't know if you're able to hear me.
go
We
ahead.
can
We can hear you.
hear you.
Okay, so I wanted to ask about big data and teacher badges. So which website I must visit to get involved?
Yeah, the big data is a workshop we developed for mainly for business schools. It's just an introduction for people to understand what big data is. It's a one-day course. So you're not going to be an expert in big data when you're done. As a manager of a company, you'll be able to kind of just know the right words, who needs to be in the room, that kind of thing, to start talking about a big data project. So we're not teaching you the skills of big data, unfortunately. It's a one-day introductory awareness program. But again, my email address, I'll put it in the chat again. You guys can email that and we can come back to you.
Okay, and then John, I see Ntombi says, is it for teachers only or tutors are also allowed? I presume these are at your teacher training workshops.
Yeah, there's no rules. No, we don't have rules. Anyone that can use it to reach people, more than welcome. They can email us now if they're interested. We're rolling out more online training this semester as well. This semester, we're going to focus on computational thinking. But they must also contact their unions. The tanks training will be done by NATU. Yeah, mainly NATU this year. SOE and SATU did it last year. But if they contact us, now and then we have online training for people.
Great. And I presume whichever, to work or build up in terms of your badges, you need to, are there different courses assigned to each level?
Yeah, it basically starts, all the schools that participated in Mandela Day will automatically get a blue badge. And then it depends if you have a coding kit that you're rolling out, that's bronze. And if you start attending training sessions, that could take you to silver. And then more training for gold. We even spoke to the IITPSA last week. This is not formal yet, so I hope I can say it. We want to add to this, if your school participates in the talent search of IITPSA, it can contribute to you getting a bigger badge.
Fantastic. Great. And then I see this is probably the last question that we can take for your session, and we can maybe have time at the end again. But Daniela says, what is your opinion on Lego Spike Essential and Prime?
I don't really know the details, but any tool is useful. I can't, we just kind of the big footprint, low budget entry tool.
Yeah.
If you can afford Lego, obviously it's good, but we just say many schools can't afford it. So no, we're not against any other tools. If you can use Lego and it has a program that's structured, takes you structurally through it, go for it. We're just trying to reach those thousands of schools that just can't even afford Lego.
Great. And then a last question is it useful in a family setting, say like for homeschooling a kid?
Definitely. I'm sending a game pack now to a parent that just wants it for his 2 kids. I sent one last week to another parent. It's an interactive tool that creates a lot of fun. We prefer kids work in groups, but nothing stops an individual from working. Maybe I should just respond to the Lego thing quickly. I'm not saying if you have Lego, don't consider this tool. Remember, this tool lays the foundation of coding concepts. And we have fancy schools like Collegiate and Alexander Road and Afrikaans Hoër in Pretoria, Durbanville High in Cape Town that uses this before they take the kids into the labs. Great.
Thank you, John. And then if I can just reiterate what Matilda says in the chat, thank you for your amazing work, Prof. Jean. So you really are doing amazing work. Keep doing what you're doing. I know you have amazing passion for this, and don't ever stop until you've touched everybody in the world. Hey?